I'll be honest, it's been a while since I have A, filmed a new video, and B, thought about writing a new project. Today's the 13th of August and I have spent the summer sort of doing everything but either of these things. First of all, I've been fairly busy in my personal life and in my work life. And then second, I've also had a lot going on during my weekends. So I've been fairly busy and I've just not sat down to just write for a little while. What I have been doing is revising my early chapters for The Art of Summoning Demons. I have started to do a reversed outline for Lockhart and Beckett, aka now called An Office Full of Monsters. And I have been daydreaming about what we like to call the plot bunny idea. What's a plot bunny? If you look at the definition online of plot bunny is a term that comes from fanfic circles originally, and it kind of means like a story idea that you have that will not leave you alone. As per the website tvtropes.org, it says the term comes from the notion that the idea will constantly gnaw at your brain until you write it, or from the fact that these story ideas tend to breed like rabbits, maybe both. So I called this project idea Project Snowstorm, and I made a little mood board so this can sort of gives you the vibe for it. I will put it over there and you can have a little look. But essentially, it is very much a actual full-time fantasy idea this time, and not an urban fantasy or contemporary fantasy idea, but a high fantasy concept. And I've never written high fantasy and I don't read enough of high fantasy, so I've sort of let the idea sit in the background of my mind without touching it too much because I guess it scares me. I also don't really have the time right now to start writing it. The base concept of it is sort of inspired by pre-revolution era France, with costumes that I have in mind are very clearly big ball gowns vibes, and there's definitely going to be a few balls being thrown by a royalty of sorts. So there is a royalty system in my imaginary world right now, and there's very much monsters that are coming from a sort of Hellgate / Pacific Rim vibes. And as what I've developed in my writing more and more is that I really enjoy writing equal parts action and equal parts romance. That's also what I have in mind for this, and I'm very much picturing a strong romance happening in there with an arranged marriage. Those are the vibes, and the vibes are sort of all I have. So all of this has been sitting in my brain and brewing in my noggin for a little while, and I've just not touched it for a little while. And recently, Reedsy reached out to me with the best timing in the world. If you haven't heard of Reedsy and you're a writer, aspiring novelist, then this is definitely a website that might interest you because it connects you to a lot of publishing professionals, essentially. But what they're also doing is something called Reedsy Learning. Reedsy Learning has always had these email courses where they send you an email at a time to sort of help you write a novel. There's different types of courses. So there's one called How to Self-Edit Your Manuscript Like a Pro, Amazon Ads for Authors, How to Get Your Book Covered by Mainstream Media. These are all free and accessible to anyone. So it's like 5 to 10 minutes to do every single time per email. So pretty easy. But recently, Reedsy has decided to launch a premium writing course, which I think is called How to Write a Novel. And it's given by Tom Bromley, who's an actual author. He's a ghostwriter. I think his books have gone to become bestsellers. Looking at his credentials, they're pretty impressive. He's worked in publishing for 25 years, so someone that has a lot more experience than I do, clearly. So Reedsy has given me access to a first look at the lesson plan, what the lessons are going to be about, the topics they're going to cover, but it all starts with prep lessons, and there's I think 5 of them, and they're called the 5 Ps. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this video because, like I said, I'm not ready yet to delve into the first draft of this book idea that I have of Project Snowstorm, but I want to develop it further. And I feel like these prep lessons before you get into the bulk of the actual course are exactly what I need. So the 5 Ps are the pitch, the protagonist, the plot, point of view, and place. So let's have a look at the pitch. Okay, so I've now finished watching that first video and it was about 12 minutes and it sort of talked through how to craft a log line or, you know, an elevator pitch in one sentence for the story idea that you have. Although this seems to be like this is going to be the shortest exercise technically, because the result of it is going to be this one sentence, this elevator pitch log line, right? It also feels like it's going to be the hardest to do, because it is so difficult to pinpoint exactly how you would sell an idea to other people, especially when you're at the very beginning of thinking about it. But I have thought enough about it that I have a vague idea of what the book is going to be about, so I think I can work on this. Okay, so it is lunchtime the day after. I've had my lunch and then I sat down and wrote down all of the bullet points of everything that I know so far about the plot for the story for Project Snowstorm. So I've got things like my main character, who she is, where she came from, the man she's set to marry in this arranged marriage, and his background story. And then I've got also things like the background story of the world that it's set up in, so the fact that there's a dimensional rift between their world and a hell dimension, which allows monsters to go through. The fact that the nobility was set up specifically because they can fight off those monsters, so they're the only ones who can touch them, and so they created weapons that allow them to fight them off. Things like that. So a lot that I know in my head, in my brain. I've just done like a little brain dump. And then underneath it, I wrote my one sentence. It's a little bit long, it's a little bit wordy, but I like it for now. I'm happy with it for now. I'm gonna read it out loud. In this pre-revolution France-inspired fantasy world where nobles rule over court intrigue, ballroom gossips, and the constant influx of monsters from a hell dimension, a woman from a secretive merchant guild is set up to marry the most fearsome of them all, the Archduke Valois, and must come to terms with her feelings for him when she realizes the only way to close the dimensional rift is to destroy the nobility. Okay, so that's it. That's my one sentence. I did this over like 15 minutes, so I'm pretty happy with it, considering I feel like there's still some work that could be done to make it work better. I feel like I have a better handle on my own story now that I've made this sentence, so good first ask. I enjoyed that. Okay, so I finished watching the video on protagonist, and there are now 3 tasks that I can do in order to build my protagonists and to flesh them out. So obviously I have 2 main characters in my head, which are my female main character and my male main character, because I'm considering this to be 50-50, you know, action and romance. So I'm gonna try to do the exercise for both of them. So in the video, Tom Bromley talks through your character's wants and needs and how they differ from each other. So I think my main character, Renee, her main want is going to be her freedom. At least that's probably what she's gonna think of as she gets into this arranged marriage that she has not chosen. She wants to be left alone. She wants to be free. I almost want to say she wants to protect her peace. It's a very 2024 expression for a historical inspired fantasy world, but in my head, it's not even that she wants to be free from being married to this man, is that she's like, if you're gonna leave me alone, that's fine. As long as I get my tower to be alone, like, just leave me be, essentially. So what's gonna be her main need? What does her character need? So she was raised to be part of this super secretive merchant guild who no one truly knows what their specialty is, and each merchant guild has a specialty. Hers is sort of like ninja-esque. It's survival. That's what they do. So I almost want to see this want as she wants to continue that. She wants to survive, just survive. But as she meets Valois and realizes that she can be loved and she's worthy of more, she realizes that what she needs is to live, not just survive, but live. But I don't feel like that really serves the plot, so I feel like I might need another need, something that's going to be a bit more shard of glass. If anything, the way that I could put it, and that would serve the plot some more, is to say that her main need is going to be to become an actor, like someone who's active in the show that is her own life and to take action, essentially. So she can't just protect her peace and passively just survive. She's going to need to take action to make things happen in order to live and enjoy living. And that's going to include her saving Valois at some point and her potentially ending this dimensional rift. Now I need to do the same exercise for Valois, and Valois is my main male character. Okay, so the second exercise is to start making a character profile, and it very much is bullet points. It's sort of like anything and everything you can think of that relates to your character, and to sort of build it up as time goes on and not just set it up and then you're done. And then finally, the third exercise is mood boarding and just sort of having a mood board per character. I've got enough material to do the mood board, so I'm definitely going to be doing that, and I think I'm just going to do some screen recording and just speed it up for you guys. So I've just watched session 3, which is on the third P, the plot, focusing on plotting, planning, etc., and whether you're a plotter or a pantser or in between. So in this session, the exercises are, first of all, to wonder how much of a planner you are and to sort of figure out what you want to do in this specific instance, in this specific novel that you're going to write. So for me, I've realized in recent times that I do better when I do plot. For Star Chaser, aka Space Princess Project, I mostly pantsed my way through it, but there was a lot of world building, and that was my main preparation before I started writing. And then Knights of Death is one that I fully outlined, like I had a very full long outline, bullet points of everything that was meant to happen, and that I wrote like a fever dream overnight at some point. I just got so inspired. And I've really enjoyed that method, and if anything, that's probably been my favorite way of working so far, and obviously it's an evolution. So I feel like potentially for Project Snowstorm, I'll do a combination of Space Princess Project where I spend a month world building before writing any storyline, and then also a combination of Knights of Death and do a proper bullet point outline of everything I know that is meant to happen in order, following Save the Cat. Finally, the second task was to try and pull the plot together starting with the wants and needs of the characters, the protagonists. So I started with Renee because in my head she is the main character, Valois is a secondary main character. So I started with Renee, and I've basically looked back at the previous exercise of her wants and needs, and it's really helped me pull together what is this size approximately of bullet point outline, which I did not expect to get. But there's a lot to fill in, and this feels like very skeleton based and just not very filled. So I'm feeling very motivated from this. Like, this exercise gave me more than I expected, so I'm pretty happy. Okay, so it is now the end of the working day, and I have just had some time to finally fill in some of the exercises for point of view. So the first task was very simply to think about which point of view and tense would work best for this story, and I think I knew the answer immediately because that is how I wrote Space Princess Project, aka Star Chaser. To me, it should be a first-person present tense, just because it is going to be a dual POV romance, and the story in my head is 50% romance at the very least, if not more. Then the second task was to try and utilize the chosen POV intents for up to 250 words, a little passage, a little excerpt of, just to see what it feels like to write under that POV intent. And I've done it for both my main characters. So I've done it for Renee and I've done it for Valois. As I stare out the window, it hits me. This is no normal storm. The way the naked silver branches of the trees bristle in the wind, the pattern of the snow as it lifts up from its blanket on the ground of the forest beyond the palace gardens. Open the window, a voice urges me, just for the sake of certainty. My hand trembles as it twists the bronze knob. I push the glass pane outward. My whole body freezes. The smell of sulfur permeates the air. This is a rift storm. And Valois and his soldiers set their course straight towards it. It felt right. The moment I started writing it, it felt supernatural, which is one of the things that is talked about in the video. It's about the sense of rightness when you try it, and if it doesn't work, to try a different POV or tense and see whether that works better. So then I tested it with Valois because in my head I was like, it's going to be a dual POV, I need to make sure it works for both characters. There are gasps all around me as the double oak doors of the temple open and the bride slowly walks down the aisle. She takes my breath away, and for a moment the world and its people disappear, leaving no one but the two of us. Yet the hushed whispers of the crowd are for another reason entirely. My bride has broken protocol. I do my best to keep my amusement to myself, biting the inside of my mouth to keep the smile at bay. The red sash, traditionally worn by men and women who marry for a second time, has been replaced by a more modern, elegant solution. Renee's brilliant white dress is adorned with small burgeoning red flowers, sewn into her bodice in a scattered pattern. Rebellion suits her, I note with delight. That's it. These are my two little passages, and I just got so excited to write in both of my characters' POVs, so this was just such a fun exercise to test it. I'm in the end so happy that I did, because now I'm like itching to write this story and feeling so much more confident in my ability to write it. Well, before, I feel like I was almost putting a barrier, like a wall up of what do I need to do before I sit down to start writing it. So since today is Friday, I am also going to watch the last video that I need to do, which is Place. That's the 5th P. Okay, so I've just watched the last video of these prep sessions, which was Place, and I now have 2 exercises to do. I've pretty much completed the first exercise as I was watching the video because it's a very simple one. The task was basically to answer some questions about where and when your book is set. I have a lot more work to do when it comes to the world building, and if anything, this is the step where I need to do it, right? But I wanted to have a little sense of answering these questions and doing these tasks before I plunge into it more heavily. So my plan is to utilize these 2 books. I don't have the third one, which is on writing and world building. And the guy who wrote these books, Timothy Hickson, has a YouTube channel. There's a lot of videos on there that sort of summarize a lot of the same thinking. I'm going to be rereading or reading for the first time from this one are going to be about things like polytheistic religions, hidden magic worlds, how empires rise, world histories, monarchies, place names, class, wealth and power. I kind of feel like the second book is going to have a lot of interesting topics for this setting especially. I really enjoyed that in this video Tom Brownlee mentions towards the end that depending on how you see yourself as a writer, you might do more or less world building. And some of it depends on whether you're a pantser or a plotter or planner. Some of it depends on whether you are driven by dialogue or description. So there is one second task to do for this last lesson, which is fleshing out your setting. And there are several ways of doing this, and I think they all will be answered in my world building technique. So including, you know, details about fashion, food, music, people, what sort of people live in your location's history, what is the backstory of the place, etc. But there is one in there that says visuals. Can you find any pictures to draw on? for this sense of place. And yes, I can, because I love mood boarding and I'm a mood boarding girl. So I think this is how I'm going to complete this task, is instead of answering all the questions right now, I'm going to do one last mood board. Okay, it is only 8 o'clock and I've just finished the last bit of exercise that I wanted to do for this. So it was my mood board for sort of locations in general. When I look at my 3 mood boards now, I'm really happy with the results and just how they set up my world and my people, my protagonists. So that concludes the 5B sessions, the prep sessions before you start the course. And the course itself now starts in, what does my dashboard say? On the 2nd of September. So if you want to join, I'm gonna leave the link in the description. Obviously, this is a sponsored video. I'd be really excited if you guys wanted to join the course. If you want to invest in your writing and you have the means for it, this is definitely a good way to do it. I've been watching videos of other people who have actually followed the course, including my friend Anna, and they seem to be really enjoying it and thinking that it's such a good way to truly understand storytelling and how to structure a novel. So I'll quickly run you through how the setup works. Essentially, when you're in the Reedsy Learning tab, you can see immediately if you're enrolled to start in this course how to write a novel. And what happens is you've got the prep sessions there, which are the ones that I have just finished completing. And then you can see all of the lessons in this tab. So these were the prep sessions. You can see in grayed out are the ones that I have not been able to take yet because the course has not. In each of the sessions, when you click on it and you watch the video, you have a little tab where you can take notes, which I think is great if that's how you want to take your notes. And then you have a summary of everything that's been talked about, and then the exercises in the writing section. So you also have the takeaways at the end that sort of summarize what you've just learned, and more resources. So you have this in every single one of the videos. And then you can sort of see what the lessons are going to be about. So the beginning lessons are each 12 minutes and they're meant to be happening over 6 days. So you always have the last day of the week. Day 7, that is a rest day. So this is how the sessions are set. And my understanding is that there's an expectation of writing 1,000 words per day if you can, while you do the sessions as well. So that allows you to get as much of your book done as possible by the time you finish it, with the last session being about endings and then next steps, your editing plan. So yeah, I really enjoyed this little week vlog of me doing these exercises. It's really set me up to be in the right mood for writing this book, and I think my next step of world building has me so excited, and I just cannot wait to get into it, because I'm gonna use that opportunity to show you how I do my world Bible on Notion. So hopefully that will also birth another useful video very soon. I'm definitely gonna include you guys more in it and tell you more about everything that goes into making this specific novel. So hopefully you're interested in it. If you are, feel free to subscribe to my channel, ring that bell, all that jazz, and I will see you guys in the next one.